The red lights of the Crimson Talon flickered as Captain X9 stood before his crew in the ship's main hall. His gray skin gleamed under the harsh lighting, and his forearms moved as he spoke. The captain's voice was deep and rough, like grinding metal. "Listen up, you worthless dogs," X9 growled. "We have a new job. Easy money this time." Around him sat his crew of mercenaries. Each one was from a different world, and each one was deadly in their own way. Krell the Destroyer sat in the corner, his massive body taking up 3 chairs. His thick hide was covered in scars from 100 battles. The Gravani warrior was known for crushing enemies with his bare hands. Next to him, Six cleaned her weapons with careful movements. The Nexari assassin was small and quick, with skin that could change color to match anything around her. She had killed more targets than anyone could count, always from the shadows. At the control panel, Thane worked on the ship's computers. The mollusk engineer had tentacles instead of arms and a brain twice the size of most species. He could hack any system and fix any machine, no matter how advanced. "What's the target?" Krell asked, his voice like an earthquake. X9 smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "A human colony, some little farming world called New Haven. The trade consortium wants them gone." The crew burst into laughter. Six actually stopped cleaning her weapon to laugh harder. "Humans." Thane's voice bubbled through his translator. "The new species? The weak ones from that backwater planet Earth?" "The same," X9 said. "Apparently they won't pay protection fees to the consortium. They think they can just live out there on their own, growing food and mining rocks." Krell slammed his fist on the table, making the whole room shake. "I fought humans before. Soft pink things. Break like twigs. No fun at all." "How many are we talking about?" Six asked, her voice like a whisper. "Less than 1,000, X9 replied. "Mostly families. Farmers, miners, that kind of thing. No real military." The laughter got louder. These were mercenaries who had destroyed entire fleets. They had wiped out colonies with millions of people. They had fought wars against the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy, and now they were being asked to deal with a few hundred humans. "This is insulting," Krell said. "Send me alone. I'll finish them in an hour." "No," X9 said. "We do this right. We go in, we scare them, we give them a chance to surrender. If they don't, we blast them from orbit. Clean and simple." "Why not just blast them right away?" Six asked. "Because the consortium wants to make an example. They want other colonies to hear about what happens when you don't pay. Fear works better than just killing." Thane pulled up files on his screen. "I've been reading about humans. They only discovered space travel a few decades ago. Their weapons are primitive. Their ships are slow. They don't even have proper energy shields." "What do they have?" X9 asked. "Kinetic weapons, mostly. Metal bullets fired by chemical explosions. Some laser weapons, but nothing powerful. Their armor is just thick metal plates. Very basic stuff." The crew laughed again. Chemical explosions and metal bullets. It was like fighting with stone tools. "Any military forces?" X9 asked. "Nothing real," Thane said. "Most of their soldiers are still back on Earth. The colonies have maybe a few security guards. Humans don't like to fight anyway. They prefer to talk and make deals." "Boring," Krell said. "Easy money," X9 corrected. "The consortium is paying us full rate for this job, same as if we were hitting a military base." "Why so much for such an easy job?" Six asked. She was always suspicious about money. "Because they want it done right. They want the message to be clear. Cross the consortium, and the Crimson Talon comes for you." While the mercenaries planned their attack, life went on as normal on New Haven. The small colony sat in a valley between 2 mountain ranges. Green fields stretched out in all directions, filled with crops that would feed dozens of worlds. Mining operations in the hills pulled valuable metals from the ground. Jake Morrison wiped sweat from his face as he worked on the power grid. He had come to New Haven to escape his old life as a soldier on Earth. Here, he could use his engineering skills to help people instead of hurt them. The colony needed someone who understood advanced systems, and Jake was happy to help. "Jake, we've got a problem," called Amy Foster as she ran up to him. The young woman handled all communications for the colony, Her face was pale with worry. "What kind of problem?" Jake asked, setting down his tools. "I was checking the long-range sensors like you taught me. There's a ship coming. Big one. Military grade." Jake felt his stomach drop. "How big?" "Class 7. Warship. Armed with plasma cannons and missile pods. It's not broadcasting any identification codes." Jake was quiet for a moment. His old military training was coming back to him. "Where's Lisa?" "In the town hall with Pete. They're going over the mining reports. Get them. Get everyone. Emergency meeting in 10 minutes." Amy nodded and ran off. Jake looked up at the sky. It was still blue and peaceful, but that would change soon. In the town hall, Lisa Campbell tried to stay calm as Amy explained what she had found. Lisa had been a diplomat before coming to New Haven. She knew how to handle difficult situations, but this was different. "Are you sure it's a warship?" she asked. "Positive," Amy said. "The computer identified it as a Vorthak battlecruiser. Those are the ships mercenaries use." Pete Rodriguez spoke up from the back of the room. "Why would mercenaries come here? We haven't done anything wrong." "The protection fees," Lisa said quietly. "The trade consortium has been demanding payments from all the outer colonies. We've been refusing." "We can't afford to pay them," Pete said. "We're barely making enough to survive as it is." Jake stood up. "How long until they get here?" 6 hours, Amy said. "Maybe less if they push their engines." "What do we do?" someone called out. Lisa looked around the room at the faces of the colonists. These were good people, families who had come here to build a better life. They didn't deserve this. "We try to talk to them," she said. "Maybe we can work something out." "And if they won't listen?" Pete asked. Jake's voice was quiet but firm. "Then we fight." The room went silent. These weren't soldiers. They were farmers and miners and teachers. But they were also human, and humans didn't give up easily. "Jake's right," Lisa said. "This is our home. We've worked too hard to just hand it over to thugs." "What chance do we have against a warship?" someone asked. Jake looked around the room. "More than they think. More than we think too, maybe. But we'll need to be smart about it." As the colonists began to plan, none of them noticed the small smile on Jake's face. The mercenaries thought they were coming to fight farmers. They had no idea they were about to face humans who had been pushed too far. Above them, the Crimson Talon continued its approach, its crew confident in their superiority. After all, they were only humans. The Crimson Talon dropped out of warp space above New Haven with a sound like thunder. Captain Zex-9 stood on the bridge, watching the small blue and green world spin below them. It looked peaceful. Too peaceful. "Scan the surface," he ordered. Thane's tentacles moved over his controls. His large eyes studied the readings that appeared on his screen. After a moment, he looked confused. "Captain, I'm getting strange readings," the engineer said. "What kind of strange?" "Energy patterns that don't match farming equipment, some kind of underground network in these buildings, and they're not what they seem." Zex-9 walked over to look at the screen. The images showed a simple colony with houses, farms, and a few small buildings. Nothing threatening. "Your scanners are broken," Zex-9 said. "Fix them." "Captain, I've checked them 3 times. The readings are correct. Those are humans down there, not warriors. They probably have some old mining equipment that's giving off energy signals. Nothing more." Krell laughed from his position at the weapons station. "Maybe they have tractors that look scary to our sensors." The crew laughed with him. Zex-9 shook his head and opened a communication channel to the planet. "Attention, New Haven Colony. This is Captain Zex-9 of the mercenary vessel Crimson Talon. You have violated Trade Consortium regulations by refusing to pay protection fees. You have 1 hour to surrender and prepare tribute, or we will destroy your settlement." The response came quickly, a human woman's voice, clear but nervous. "This is Administrator Lisa Campbell of New Haven Colony. We request a meeting to discuss terms. Can we talk face to face?" Zex-9 smiled. Humans always wanted to talk. They thought words could solve everything. "You want to meet?" "Fine. There's a field north of your main settlement. Be there in 2 hours. Bring whoever makes decisions for your little colony. Agreed. We'll be there. Zex-9 cut the communication and turned to his crew. See how easy this is? They're already scared, probably ready to give us everything they have. Should I prepare the ship for orbital bombardment? Thane asked. Not yet. Let's see what they offer first. Maybe we can get more than just the protection fees. 2 hours later, Zex-9 and Krell stood in the open field. The captain wore his best armor, black metal that gleamed in the sunlight. Krell carried his massive warhammer, a weapon that had crushed hundreds of enemies. A small vehicle approached from the human settlement. It looked like a simple farm truck, nothing impressive. 2 humans got out and walked toward them. The woman was middle-aged with gray hair and calm eyes. She wore simple clothes but carried herself like someone used to making important decisions. This had to be Lisa Campbell. The man next to her was younger, with strong shoulders and careful movements. He wore work clothes, but his eyes moved constantly, studying everything around them. Something about him made Zex-9 feel slightly uncomfortable, though he couldn't say why. I'm Lisa Campbell, the woman said. This is Jake Morrison, our chief engineer. Captain Zex-9, the mercenary replied. This is Krell. He's here to make sure you understand how serious this situation is. Krell slammed his hammer into the ground, leaving a deep crack in the earth. Lisa jumped slightly, but Jake just watched without showing any emotion. Let's get to business, Zex-9 said. The trade consortium wants 50,000 credits immediately, plus 20,000 every month from now on. You also need to provide food and supplies for any consortium ships that visit your system. That's impossible, Lisa said. We don't have that kind of money. The colony barely makes enough to survive. Then you'll have to find a way, Zex-9 said. Sell your equipment, work harder. I don't care how you do it. While Lisa and Zex-9 talked, Jake studied the 2 mercenaries carefully. He noted the design of their armor, looking for weak points. He watched how they moved, learning their habits. He memorized the weapons they carried and estimated their range and power. Krell noticed Jake staring at him. Something wrong, human? Just curious about your equipment, Jake said calmly. I've never seen armor like that before. Gorvani battle armor, Krell said proudly. Strongest in the galaxy. Can stop any weapon you humans have. Impressive, Jake said. But he had already spotted 3 places where the armor plates didn't quite meet. Areas where a well-placed shot might get through. We need time, Lisa said. Even if we agree to pay, we can't gather that much money in a few hours. Zex-9 considered this. He was enjoying watching the humans squirm. Fine. You have 48 hours to prepare the first payment and organize your tribute. After that, we start shooting. Thank you, Lisa said. She actually seemed relieved, which pleased Zex-9. Fear was a useful tool. Don't thank me yet, the captain said. If you try to run or call for help, we'll destroy your colony from orbit. Our sensors will be watching everything you do. We understand, Lisa said. As the humans walked back to their vehicle, Krell turned to his captain. Why give them time? We could finish this now. Because fear makes them more cooperative. Let them worry for 2 days. When we come back, they'll give us everything we want without a fight. Back at the colony, Jake and Lisa called another emergency meeting. The town hall was packed with worried colonists. What did they say? Pete asked. They want money we don't have, Lisa replied. 50,000 credits now, 20,000 every month after that. People started talking at once, their voices full of fear and anger. Quiet, Jake said, and somehow everyone listened. We're not paying them anything. But they'll destroy the colony, someone said. Maybe, or maybe they'll try to and fail. Jake, they have a warship, Lisa said. We have farming tools. Jake smiled for the first time since the meeting began. We have more than that. We have time. We have knowledge of the local area, and we have something they don't expect. What's that? Pete asked. Experience. Lisa, I need you to start organizing evacuation procedures. Make it look real, but keep everyone close. Pete, I need to know every tunnel, every cave, every hiding place in those mountains. Amy, I need you to start monitoring their communications and jamming their sensors without them noticing. How do we jam their sensors without them knowing? Amy asked. Make it look like natural interference. Solar flares, magnetic storms, whatever sounds scientific. The important thing is to create blind spots. What about weapons? Someone asked. We can't fight a warship with hunting rifles. Jake's smile got wider. Who said anything about fighting? Fair. We're not going to attack their ship. We're going to make them come to us. And then what? Then we show them what humans do best. We adapt. We survive. And we make our enemies regret underestimating us. That night, while the mercenaries celebrated their easy victory on their ship, the colonists worked. Pete led teams into the mountains, mapping every tunnel and cave. Others began moving supplies and equipment to hidden locations. Amy worked on the communication systems, creating interference patterns that would confuse the mercenaries' sensors. To anyone listening, it would sound like normal radio chatter between families. Jake supervised the most important work. Using mining charges and construction equipment, they began creating something the mercenaries would never expect. Not just hiding places, but a trap. Are you sure this will work? Lisa asked as she watched Jake examine mining explosive. It worked on Earth, Jake said quietly. Against enemies with better weapons and more soldiers than us? You were in the military. Special Forces combat engineer. I came here to get away from all that. But sometimes the past catches up with you. And you think we can really fight them? Jake looked out at the colonists working in the darkness. Families helping each other, sharing tools and knowledge. People who had chosen to build something instead of destroy it. I think they have no idea what they're up against, he said. They see farmers and miners. But every human is a soldier when their home is threatened. They just don't know it yet. Above them, the Crimson Talon maintained its orbit. Captain X9 slept peacefully, confident that the humans below were preparing to surrender. He had no idea that they were preparing for war. In 46 hours, he would learn the difference between fighting soldiers and fighting humans who had nothing left to lose. It would be a lesson he would never forget. The sun was just coming up when Captain X9 gave the order to attack. 48 hours had passed and the humans had not delivered the tribute money. It was time to teach them a lesson. Krell, take your team to the main settlement. Destroy anything that looks important. 6, circle around from the east and hit their communications building. Thane, keep jamming their signals from the ship. I want this finished by noon. The 3 mercenaries prepared their weapons and equipment. Krell strapped on extra armor and grabbed his warhammer. 6 activated her stealth suit and checked her poison darts. Thane powered up the ship's electronic warfare systems. Remember, X9 said, we want some survivors to spread the word. Kill enough to make the point, but leave a few alive to tell other colonies what happens when you don't pay. What about their leader, this Lisa Campbell? 6 asked. Keep her alive if possible. Leaders make good examples. The attack began exactly at sunrise. Krell's transport landed near the main settlement with a crash that shook the ground. The massive Gorvani warrior jumped out, roaring his battle cry and swinging his hammer at the nearest building. The wall exploded into pieces. Krell laughed and moved to the next target. But something was wrong. Where were the screaming humans? Where was the panic he expected? Thane, where are the colonists? He spoke into his communicator. Sensors show movement underground. They must be hiding in basements. Cowards, Krell said. He moved deeper into the settlement, smashing buildings and looking for targets. But every building was empty. No furniture, no personal belongings, nothing valuable at all. Behind him, the buildings he had just destroyed suddenly exploded again. But this time, the explosions were much bigger. Mining charges hidden in the walls turned the rubble into deadly fragments that flew in all directions. Krell threw himself behind cover as pieces of metal and stone bounced off his armor. What was that? Unknown, Thane replied. My sensors didn't detect any weapons. Well, they're here now, Krell shouted as another explosion rocked the settlement. Meanwhile, 6 moved through the shadows toward the communications building. Her stealth suit made her nearly invisible, bending light around her body. She had used this technique to assassinate hundreds of targets. But as she got closer to her target, something felt wrong. The building looked too quiet, too empty. Her instincts told her it was a trap, but her pride told her that humans couldn't possibly detect her advanced technology. She was wrong. Amy Foster sat in a hidden bunker 50 meters away, watching Six approach on a screen. The young human had spent 2 days learning everything she could about Nexari stealth technology. She discovered that the suits worked by bending visible light, but they still gave off heat signatures and created small distortions in the air. "Jake, the invisible one is almost at the communications building," Amy said into her radio. "Perfect. Start phase 2. Amy pressed a button. Instantly, every speaker in the colony began broadcasting a high-pitched sound that hurt the ears of most species. But humans had specially designed ear protection that blocked the noise. Six stumbled as the sound hit her. Her suit systems went crazy, trying to process the sonic attack. The stealth field flickered and failed, revealing her position. That's when the humans struck. They came from underground tunnels, from hidden bunkers, from places that shouldn't exist. But Jake had turned the entire settlement into a three-dimensional maze of passages and hiding spots. The humans knew every tunnel, every secret door, every way in and out. Six found herself surrounded by a dozen colonists carrying simple weapons. Hunting rifles, mining tools, even kitchen knives. She laughed at first. These primitive weapons couldn't hurt her advanced armor. Then she noticed that every human weapon was aimed at the exact same spot. The weak joint in her armor that she thought no one knew about. Somehow these simple farmers had studied her equipment and found its weakness. "Surrender," said an old man holding a shotgun. "We don't want to kill you, but we will if we have." Six threw herself to the side and activated her emergency teleporter. She vanished in a flash of light, reappearing 50 meters away. But the humans were ready for that too. More colonists waited at her new position, their weapons already aimed at her teleportation point. How did they know where she would appear? Back at the main settlement, Krell was having his own problems. Every time he destroyed a building, 2 more explosions would go off somewhere else. The humans had turned their own town into a weapon against him. Worse, he kept seeing movement in his peripheral vision. Humans would appear for just a moment, take a shot at his armor, then disappear before he could respond. None of the shots hurt him, but they were all aimed at the same spots. They were testing his defenses, learning his weaknesses. "This is taking too long," he growled into his communicator. "Where's my support?" "Six is pinned down near the communications building," Thane replied. "And Captain, I'm having problems with the ship's systems." "What kind of problems?" "Someone is hacking our computers. The attacks are crude, but there are hundreds of them coming from different sources. It's like every human in the colony is trying to break into our systems at the same time." On the ship, Thane's tentacles moved frantically over his controls. The attacks weren't sophisticated, but they were relentless. Every time he blocked one intrusion, 10 more would start. The humans were using their farming computers, their mining equipment, even their entertainment systems to attack his ship. Individually, none of these attacks could break through his defenses, but together they were creating chaos in his systems. Warning lights flashed, alarms went off, and his sensors kept giving him false readings. "Captain," Thane called over the communicator, "I need to focus on defending the ship. I can't provide support for the ground team." Captain Zex9 felt the first taste of real concern. This was supposed to be a simple intimidation mission. His crew should have finished the job in an hour. Instead, they were all having problems. "All units regroup at the landing zone," he ordered. "We'll hit them with orbital bombardment instead." But regrouping was easier said than done. Krell found himself lost in a maze of destroyed buildings and underground tunnels. Every path seemed to lead to another dead end or another trap. The humans had somehow changed the layout of their own settlement during the battle. Six tried to use her stealth suit to escape, but every time she activated it, the humans seemed to know exactly where she was. They had somehow turned her own technology against her. And all the while, Amy Foster's voice echoed through speakers hidden throughout the colony. She wasn't giving orders or coordinating attacks. Instead, she was reading from a book. "The Battle of Thermopylae," her voice said calmly. 300 Spartans held off an army of thousands. They knew they couldn't win, but they fought anyway because some things are worth dying for. The Siege of the Alamo. Less than 200 defenders against thousands of attackers. They could have surrendered, but they chose to fight for their beliefs. The Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. Jewish fighters with almost no weapons held off the German army for nearly a month. They fought not because they could win, but because they refused to give up. The psychological effect was devastating. These weren't just random stories, they were messages. The humans were telling the mercenaries that they understood the odds, that they knew they were outgunned and outnumbered, but that they were going to fight anyway. Captain X9 listened to the broadcast from his ship and felt something he hadn't experienced in years. Fear, not of death, which was always a possibility in his line of work, but of failure. His legendary crew was being outfought by farmers and miners. "Forget regrouping," he ordered. "Everyone back to the ship. We'll glass the entire planet from orbit." But getting back to the ship was harder than expected. The humans had been busy during the 48-hour waiting period. They had dug tunnels, set traps, and created hiding spots everywhere. What looked like a simple farming colony was actually a military fortress disguised as a peaceful settlement. As the sun reached its highest point in the sky, the three mercenaries finally made it back to their landing zone. They were battered, frustrated, and angry, but they were also confused. They had fought wars across the galaxy, defeated armies with superior technology, and conquered planets with millions of defenders, but they had never faced an enemy like this. The humans didn't fight like soldiers. They fought like they had nothing to lose because their home was everything to them. "Captain," Thane said as the mercenaries climbed aboard their ship, "I'm detecting massive energy buildups throughout the colony. They're preparing something big." "It doesn't matter," X9 said. "Charge the main guns, we'll turn this entire valley into glass." But as the ship's weapons powered up, Jake Morrison smiled from his hidden command post. The mercenaries thought they were retreating to safety. They had no idea they were walking into the biggest trap of all. The real battle was about to begin. News of the battle at New Haven spread through the mercenary networks like wildfire. At first, other crews thought it was a joke. The famous Crimson Talon, stopped by human farmers? Impossible. But the reports kept coming. Emergency signals from Captain X9's ship, damage reports. Request for backup that made no sense for such a simple mission. On the mercenary station Dark Harbor, crews gathered around communication screens to listen to the battle. What started as entertainment quickly turned to disbelief. "Krell is asking for medical assistance," announced Vex, captain of the ship Nightclaw. "Says he's suffering from psychological trauma." The other captains laughed, but the laughter was nervous now. Krell the destroyer didn't get psychological trauma. He gave it to other people. "What about Six?" asked Captain Mora of the Death Wind. "Xlastu. Report says the humans somehow tracked her through her stealth suit. She managed to escape, but barely." The laughter stopped completely. Six was the best assassin in 3 star systems. If humans could detect her stealth technology, what else could they do? Meanwhile, on the Crimson Talon, the crew was falling apart. They had locked themselves inside their ship, but even there they didn't feel safe. The humans were doing something to their minds. Amy Foster's voice continued to broadcast on every frequency. She wasn't just reading history anymore, now she was reading personal files. "Captain X9, her voice said calmly. "Real name, Zex Kohler 9. Born on Vorthak Prime. Kicked out of the Planetary Defense Force for excessive violence against civilians. Joined mercenary crews because no legitimate military would take him." X9 felt his blood turn cold. That information was classified. "How did the humans get it, Krell?" Amy continued. "Real name, Krell Basha. Lost his family when pirates attacked his homeworld. Became a mercenary to pay for revenge against the pirates who killed them. Still sends money to an orphanage on Gorvani 7 every month." Krell made a sound like a wounded animal. Even his own crew didn't know about the orphanage. "Six," Amy said. "Real name, Sixiana Vel. Former government assassin. Went rogue when ordered to kill her own sister. Has been running from Nexari intelligence for 6 years." Six, curled up in a corner, shaking. These weren't just facts. These were secrets that could get her killed if the wrong people heard them. How? Thane whispered. How do they know these things? But Jake Morrison was just getting started. While Amy handled the psychological warfare, he was implementing Phase 3 of his plan. Every human in the colony was connected to a network he had built using mining equipment, farming computers, and communication devices. They weren't just sharing information anymore. They were sharing intelligence with every human settlement in the sector. Lisa Campbell opened a communication channel to the human colony on New Perth, 3 star systems away. "This is New Haven," she said. "We're under attack by Vorthak mercenaries. I'm sending you everything we've learned about their tactics and technology." "Received," came the reply. "We'll pass it along to the other settlements." Within hours, detailed reports about mercenary weapons, armor weaknesses, and psychological profiles were spreading to dozens of human colonies. What the mercenaries thought was an isolated attack on a helpless farm world was actually an intelligence-gathering operation. The humans were learning, and they were sharing everything they learned. Captain Zex-9 tried to contact his employer, the Trade Consortium. "This is the Crimson Talon requesting immediate backup. The situation has become complicated." The response was cold. "Explain complicated, Captain." "The humans are more prepared than expected. They have advanced defensive systems and detailed intelligence about our operations." "Are you telling me that your crew cannot handle a few hundred farmers?" Zex-9 winced. When put that way, it sounded impossible, but the evidence was right in front of him. "Request permission to withdraw and reassess. Permission denied. Complete your mission or face breach of contract penalties." The communication ended. The Trade Consortium wasn't going to help. They expected the Crimson Talon to finish the job or suffer the consequences, but finishing the job was becoming impossible. Thane's computers were under constant attack. Every system on the ship was showing errors and glitches. The humans had somehow turned their entire colony into a single massive hacking network. "Captain," Thane said, his voice full of panic. "They're in our navigation system. If I can't fix this, we won't be able to leave orbit." "What do you mean?" Zex-9 demanded. "They've changed our flight computer codes. The ship thinks it's somewhere else. If I try to engage the warp drive now, we could end up anywhere in the galaxy." While Thane fought to regain control of his systems, word of the battle reached other mercenary crews. The initial mockery had turned to concern, then to fear. Captain Vex of the Nightclaw called an emergency meeting of mercenary commanders. "We need to discuss the New Haven situation." "What's to discuss?" asked Captain Mora. "Either Zex-9 is losing his mind, or there's something about humans we don't understand." "I vote for option 2, said Captain Krug of the ship Blood Oath. "I had a run-in with humans last year. Thought it would be easy money. Turned out to be the hardest fight of my career." Other captains began sharing their own stories. A human traitor who had somehow detected their ambush before it happened. A human diplomat who smiled while recording everything they said, then used it against them later. A human colony that had fought off 3 different pirate raids using nothing but mining equipment and farming tools. A pattern was emerging. Humans weren't the weak, primitive species everyone thought they were. They were something much more dangerous. They were survivors who learned from every encounter and shared that knowledge with others of their kind. "We need to warn the others," Captain Vex said. "Humans are not to be underestimated," but the warning came too late for many crews. Reports started coming in from across the sector. Human settlements that had seemed helpless were suddenly fighting back with tactics that made no sense. They used farming equipment as weapons, turned their own buildings into traps, and somehow always seemed to know exactly what their attackers were planning. Back on New Haven, Jake Morrison watched the mercenary communication traffic with satisfaction. The psychological warfare was working better than he had hoped. Fear was spreading through the mercenary networks like a virus. "Phase 4, he announced to his team. Pete Rodriguez looked up from his mining equipment. "Are you sure about this? Once we start Phase 4, there's no going back." "They brought this fight to us," Jake said. "Now we finish it." Amy Foster began broadcasting a new message. This time, it wasn't history or personal files. It was a simple, Statement that would change everything. Attention all ships in the New Haven system, she said. This is the human colony of New Haven. We are declaring our independence from all galactic authority. We reject the protection of the Trade Consortium and the threats of their mercenary allies. This world belongs to humanity now. The message was broadcast on every frequency, in every language, to every ship within range. It was a declaration of war against the established order of the galaxy. But it was also something else. It was a message to every human settlement in known space. The message was clear. We don't have to accept being victims anymore. We can fight back. We can win. Captain X9 stared at his communication screen in horror. The humans weren't just defending their colony anymore. They were starting a revolution. Captain, Thane said quietly, we need to leave. Now. We can't leave. The Trade Consortium will destroy us if we fail. The humans will destroy us if we stay. Around them, the ship's systems continued to malfunction. Warning lights flashed, red. Alarms sounded constantly. The humans had turned their advanced technology against them, using it as a weapon more effective than any gun or missile. In the distance, they could see energy buildups around the colony. The humans were preparing something big, something that would change the balance of power in the sector forever. Captain X9 made his decision. Charge all weapons, we end this now. But Jake Morrison was ready for that too. He had been preparing for this moment since the Mercenaries first arrived. The real trap wasn't the colony defenses or the psychological warfare or even the hacking attacks. The real trap was making the Mercenaries think they could win with orbital bombardment. Because when they tried, they would learn the final lesson about fighting humans. Humans don't just adapt to survive, they adapt to win. Captain X9 stood on the bridge of the Crimson Talon, his 4 hands gripping the command console. Enough was enough. The humans had embarrassed him for the last time. Target the main settlement, he ordered. Full power to plasma cannons. Captain, Thane said nervously, are you sure about this? Orbital bombardment will destroy everything. The Trade Consortium wanted examples, not a wasteland. The Trade Consortium can find their examples somewhere else. I want this planet burned. The ship's massive weapons began to charge. Energy readings climbed higher and higher. In a few minutes, the Crimson Talon would have enough power to turn the entire valley into molten rock. Down on New Haven, alarms rang throughout the colony. Everyone knew what those energy readings meant. The Mercenaries were done playing games. All teams to final positions, Jake Morrison announced over the radio. This is it. Families hugged each other goodbye and headed to the deepest bunkers. But not everyone was hiding. Jake and his team took their positions at the most dangerous job of all. You sure this will work? Pete Rodriguez asked as he checked the mining charges one last time. It worked against the corporate wars on Mars, Jake said. Of course, we had better equipment then. We also had trained soldiers, Lisa Campbell added. She was staying with Jake's team instead of hiding in the bunkers. As colony administrator, she felt it was her duty to see this through. We have something better than trained soldiers, Jake said. We have people fighting for their homes. Amy Foster's voice came over the radio. Jake, the ship's weapons are at 90% charge. Whatever you're going to do it now. Jake looked out at the peaceful valley that had become his home. Green fields stretched to the mountains. Children had played in those fields just days ago. Now those same fields were about to become a battlefield that would decide the fate of human independence. Light it up, he said. The plan was insane. It was dangerous. It was the kind of thing that only humans would try. Jake had spent 2 days turning the entire mining operation into a single massive weapon. Not a weapon aimed at the sky, but a weapon aimed at the ground. Every mining charge in the colony exploded at the same moment. But they weren't random explosions. Jake had calculated the exact positions, the precise timing, and the perfect angles. The explosions created a chain reaction that traveled deep into the planet's crust. New Haven sat on top of a massive underground cave system. The caves were filled with natural gas that had been trapped there for millions of years. The mining explosions cracked the rock formations that kept the gas contained. The result was spectacular. A column of fire shot up from the ground directly, beneath the Crimson Talon. The natural gas burned with a heat that could melt starship armor. The mercenary vessel, caught completely by surprise, found itself trapped in a pillar of flame that reached from the planet's surface to low orbit. "Emergency power to shields," Zex-9 screamed. But it was too late. The incredible heat overloaded the ship's systems. The shields failed, the armor began to melt, and worst of all, the engines were damaged beyond repair. The Crimson Talon, one of the most feared warships in the galaxy, crashed into the surface of New Haven with a sound like thunder. Jake and his team watched from their safe distance as the mighty ship lay broken in a crater of its own making. Smoke poured from the wreckage. Small explosions continued as internal systems failed. "Think they survived?" Pete asked. "Some of them," Jake said. "That ship was built tough. The question is what we do with the survivors." They didn't have to wait long to find out. Emergency hatches opened on the crashed ship. 3 figures stumbled out, their armor blackened and damaged. Captain Zex-9 looked around at the destruction with disbelief. His ship was ruined. His crew was broken. His reputation was destroyed. And it had all been done by humans using mining equipment. Krell sat on the ground next to the wreckage, staring at nothing. The mighty Gorvani warrior had finally met an enemy he couldn't smash with his hammer. His spirit was completely broken. Six tried to activate her stealth suit, but the crash had damaged it beyond repair. For the first time in years, she was visible and vulnerable. She looked around nervously, expecting human soldiers to appear from every direction. But when the humans came, they weren't soldiers. They were the same farmers and miners who had just defeated the most dangerous mercenaries in the galaxy. Men and women carrying simple weapons and wearing work clothes. Jake Morrison walked up to Captain Zex-9. The mercenary captain was twice his size and armed with advanced weapons, but somehow Jake was the one who looked dangerous. "Surrender," Jake said simply. "And if I refuse?" Zex-9 asked. Jake pointed to the burning wreckage of the Crimson Talon. "You can try to fight us with broken equipment and a damaged crew, or you can live to warn others about what happens when you threaten human colonies." Zex-9 looked around at his crew. Krell was useless. Six was scared. Thane was trapped in the wreckage trying to salvage the computer systems. They had no chance of fighting their way out. "What do you want?" he asked. "A message," Lisa Campbell said as she joined the group. "We want you to tell every mercenary crew in the galaxy exactly what happened here. You want me to admit defeat to a bunch of farmers?" "We want you to tell the truth," Jake said. "Tell them that humans aren't the easy targets they thought we were. Tell them that every human colony is ready to fight. Tell them that we learn from every battle and share what we learn with every other human settlement." Captain Zex-9 realized what the humans were really doing. They weren't just defending their colony. They were sending a message to the entire galaxy. A message that would change how every species looked at humanity. "You're starting a war," he said. "No," Lisa said. "We're ending one. The war where everyone thinks they can push humans around just because we're new to space. That war is over." 3 days later, Captain Zex-9 found himself in front of a camera, broadcasting to every mercenary base in the galaxy. His crew stood behind him looking defeated and broken. "This is Captain Zex-9 of the former ship Crimson Talon," he began. "I am here to warn every crew about the humans of New Haven Colony." He paused, looking directly into the camera. "They're only humans," he said, "but that's what makes them the most dangerous enemy you'll ever face. They don't have our technology or our training. They don't have our weapons or our experience. What they have is something worse. They refuse to accept that they can't win. Every human is a potential soldier. Every tool is a potential weapon. Every defeat is just a lesson for the next battle. They don't fight like civilized species. They fight like their lives depend on it, because to them, their home is their life. We came to New Haven expecting to intimidate farmers. Instead, we found warriors who had turned their entire world into a weapon against us. They used mining equipment to destroy our ship. They used farming computers to hack our systems. They used their children's toys to track our movements. But the worst part isn't what they did to us. The worst part is what they're doing now. Every human colony in the sector has the battle plans from New Haven. They're all preparing the same defenses. They're all sharing information. They're all ready to fight. Captain X9 looked tired as he continued. If you're thinking about attacking a human settlement, don't. Find another target. Pick a different enemy, because humans aren't prey pretending to be predators. They're predators pretending to be prey. And when you realize that, it's already too late. The broadcast ended. Within hours, it was playing on every mercenary base, every pirate station, and every criminal hideout in the galaxy. Back on New Haven, life was slowly returning to normal. The wreckage of the Crimson Talon had been cleared away. The mining operations were back online. Children played in the fields again. But things had changed. Other human colonies were sending messages of support. Trade ships were arriving with better equipment and weapons. And most importantly, no one was demanding protection fees anymore. Jake Morrison stood in the same field where he had first met the mercenaries. Lisa Campbell joined him, carrying a report from the Trade Consortium. "What does it say?" Jake asked. "They're officially recognizing our independence. No more protection fees. No more demands for tribute. They're treating us as equals now." "Good. What about the other colonies?" 17 human settlements have declared independence in the last week. More are planning to follow. The Trade Consortium doesn't want to fight a war against every human colony in the galaxy. Jake smiled. Smart of them. The mercenary attacks have stopped too. Word is spreading that humans are too dangerous to mess with. Even better. Amy Foster's voice came over the radio. "Jake, we're getting a message from Earth. They want to know how we defeated a Vorthak warship with mining equipment." Jake laughed. "Tell them it's simple. We're human. When someone threatens our home, we stop being farmers and miners and teachers. We become whatever we need to become to protect what we love." "And what's that?" Amy asked. Jake looked out at the peaceful valley, thinking about all the children who would grow up safe because of what they had done here. "Dangerous," he said. "We become dangerous." The galaxy had learned an important lesson at New Haven. Humans might be new to space, but they weren't new to fighting. And when you threaten their homes, their families, and their way of life, they become the most dangerous enemy you can imagine.